Hello and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Alexandra Sawyer with Guidehouse, and today I have this pleasure of speaking with Meera Dugar from JPMorganChase. Meera, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what you focus in on?
Yeah, Alexandra, thank you. Looking forward to, just talking about my experience, which is definitely been very varied. It's been assorted of, a wide range of verticals and industries that I've been part of. Definitely got the pleasure of working in the retail industry with McDonald's, with the likes of Office Max, Office Depot, as the merger happened, with Capgemini, the consulting firm, and just been a behemoth of varied experiences that helped me get this far with my career and helped me embellish my experiences, the technology that I used along the way. And finally, right now I'm with Chase, but the financial institution that is of this large of a setup requires us to be very technology, intelligent, technology aware, and almost work with cutting edge and bleeding edge technology. So it's very, very exciting, very, very exciting to be in these times in this space and to be part of what's coming. So it's
Yeah, that's great, and I think your background is going to lend great with the questions that I've thought through here. So let's jump right in. So obviously at the heart of data really is about decision making, right? And with comes evolving role of data analytics and governance. So can you talk to me a little bit about how data analytics, data governance is really evolving in the light of the many technologies and innovations that are out there? We've got Gen AI, large language models. There are so many. You probably know more than I can probably even list off here. So can you talk to me about, how do we evolve with that?
Yeah, so the way I look at evolution, right? I look at it with having the right mindset. As we as leaders, when we are prompting the audience, which would be other leaders in the industry, other technologists in the industry, or even other folks that are trying to make those hard decisions and budgets on ROIs, right? And when investor day comes around, what do we tell our investors, right? What are we putting our budget towards? Those are the kind of hard questions that we have to answer. And in terms of just being ready for those kind of answers, I think we have to make very smart decisions in terms of let's look at the landscape of what happened in the past and how we are now ready to take over the AI space to make sure that we're not only readying ourselves, but the crew that actually does, the actual engineering behind the scenes, the design flows that are laid out, the architecture that's laid out, right? So we all have to educate ourselves and create that culture of innovation, create that culture of learning, and just be very smart about the decisions, be careful. You got to crawl before you walk, before you
Yeah.
run, before you leap. So I take that mindset and say, let's just stay very intuitive with what we're going to do next.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And then also, with financial institutions, and you have such a varied background, with data obviously being the thread through all of it. But for financial institutions, how can analytics really improve the customer experience and drive growth? I mean, I think you've seen that in many of your other, places that you've been. So talk to us a little bit about how, the data and analytics can really be to move that needle forward.
Of course. There's been the customer experience that you mentioned. Is always focus on the customer, whether that be at McDonald's, whether that be at, let's take any banking institution, right? Customers first and foremost. I know I've heard the term customers always right. And then there's debates about that too. But at the end of the day, you want to give your customer the best experience. And how do we make that happen? We make that happen with making sure that as the customer is onboarding and showing us that loyalty over and over again, you're providing him or her, right? You're providing them with that experience that solidifies that loyalty, solidifies their reason to come back to you, and solidifies their journeys and saying, hey, by the way, I had the best experience ever when I went and stood at such and such branch, when I went and went, to a certain website, and the data that was offered or the prompts that were offered to me as I chatbotted away and I got all my answers, right? That gave me the best experience because I know that this institution brings along that inherited way of letting the customer know that we have your data, we have your back, and nobody gets your data outside the siloed environment that we created for it, right?
Yeah,
So
I mean,
that
it's really about
mindset,
trust. Yeah,
yeah,
trust and creating that good experience go hand in hand, for sure.
exactly. I mean, it's if I put myself in the customer's shoes and I say, hey, by the way, when let's say Sprint and T-Mobile had that takeover, that the merger or of sorts, and I went from being a Sprint customer to a T-Mobile customer. I wanted the same experience that I got throughout the years with Sprint. So those are the kind of experiences that customers expect, right? So if you just shift that mindset and say, hey, by the way, I'm going to do the 180 and put myself in the customer's shoes, what would I like? I would want this experience. And therefore, I think that's constantly, what leaders think about, and giving their customers the right satisfaction, making sure that we're adhering to the rules, the policies that we advocate.
Yeah. You'd sort of mentioned this earlier in response to my last question, but you talked about collaboration. So talk to me a little bit about how CDOs can really collaborate with other executives that maybe aren't so data driven to drive towards a more data driven culture and foster that innovation. Because sometimes you just have to be educating those on the other side of the table. So talk to me a little bit about how some of that collaboration that you've seen that work.
Yeah, I actually, I was fortunate enough to be invited to a couple of symposiums and conferences. One of them being the CDO Data Conference. This conference and summit was in Milwaukee, and in the past, I've gone to their Cincinnati location too, and it was fantastic because you had the top talent speaking, giving us webinars, having side conversations. We were constantly trying to merge each other's situations and trying to learn from each other, because everyone kind of the ideas that resonated along the way were very common in their themes, right? Everyone had the same set of pain points. Everyone was trying to find solutions to the very same security-based ideas. What would you do? Do you have MFA? Do you set up authentication where there's layers and layers? But then you don't want that customer experience that we just spoke about, right? You don't want that lag to come in the way of that experience. So how do you maneuver authentication, authorization, and keeping their data very, very siloed, and making sure that your customers, that are targeted with, let's say, upselling activities, right? You're targeted as a customer in a certain campaign. So in the past, you were flooded with emails, you were flooded. Now it's going to be a different experience. Your targeted customer, when they go on chatbots, they are prompted to go after a certain product. So you don't no longer have to flood their emails. You don't longer have to send them constant notifications, which get irritating, and you start spam, thinking it's spam, and I'm gonna just delete these, right? I'm gonna create a rule that's automatically deleting these. So those are the kind of gems that we have to excavate. Those are the kind of customer experiences we have to target as enterprises.
Meera, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today. And for the listeners, if you are interested in other additional interviews, please feel free to visit cdomagazine.tech. Thanks again, Meera.
Thanks, Alexandra.